Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is ModJam 5. I'm not affiliated with anyone from ModJam, nor was I asked to do this video for anyone but me. This video is intended to give a sample of some, if not all, of the entries in ModJam 5. Please vote for your favorite, and check them out. Links are in the description below. Lastly, don't base your opinion of the mods entirely on what I do or don't show here, as I'm not an expert on these mods. These mods, and myself, may not be in working order and are to be considered potentially work in progress, like myself. There are 4 categories: solo mods, team mods, solo maps, and team maps. This video is to represent team mods. This mod is called Elemental Affinities by Team Trainwreck, and the idea here is you craft up this little altar tile here, which, currently a work-in-progress recipe, or perhaps this is the genuine recipe, but there you go, you've got this here. We'll create this really cool-looking little tile here. You can then interact with it, and then you can choose up to 3 different affinities. You've got your earth, water, ice, void, air, I'm guessing astral of some sort. I'm not entirely sure. Ender, there you go. Fire, and of course, light, which, I don't know, it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this. I pick 3 of them, and you gain different accesses and may have different mana available. I'm in creative right now, so that I don't need to worry about this. But there are other things like a little crystal ball that you can make, which at this point in the mod is currently just an ingredient in other stuff. Like you can make a light spell, you can make a mining spell, you can make a liquefacting spell, and a Nova spell. There's more planned, but as far as ModJam goes, this is what is available. So, once you've learned these spells, assuming that you're attuned to the proper, affinities so that you can actually cast and use these, you have the different ones. Now let's try Light. There's a dark spot over here. I'll cast Light. It makes this really cool effect and leaves this little light bulb thing here that you could, destroy if you want, or cast more. So you basically can make yourself some projectile torches that have really cool particle effects. And also, I have to say, they're some of the nicest looking textures I've seen for a light source in a very long time. Then you can go with the mining one, of course, which it doesn't work on dirt per se, but it should work on stone. So therefore, you can mine away, and it mines like 3 by 3 by 2 or 3 deep. What is it? 1 to 2 deep. There you go. And it doesn't work on like your gravels and dirts, but you do have liquefact for that. And if you shoot this, it turns things into like a scary version. Basically, you sink down into it like you would like quicksand. So I'm drowning, but I'm in creative. Anyway, then of course there's Nova, which is like this really cool just explosion effect. You can launch these provided you have mana and stuff. They do damage in an area as well as kind of explode. So if I hit this dirt, it'll take out a lot of the dirt, but it really isn't doing a lot of damage to the stone face, maybe a little bit. So it's maybe the equivalent of a weak creeper, I'm guessing. But this is just, currently Elemental Affinities by Team Trainwreck. This mod is called The Jam Machine by AtomicWorkshop and Workshop Craft. Now, those are possibly familiar with some of the musical note blocks of vanilla Minecraft, where you've got your standard note block. You've got one that is placed on top of another block. And then you've got one that also just hovers in the air. And you've got your 3 basic types. There's more to it than this. But this is where the jam machine comes in with the sequencer. It adds this one block that does a lot of stuff. So instead of having these massive, huge redstone contraptions, you can have the sequencer. Actually, let me turn the music off. There we go. The Minecraft music turning on at this time is not the right time. But the sequencer is made with some basic stuff. And there's also punch cards so that you can copy these and paste them. And those are relatively easy as well. If you have one that you've already written on, then you can just put it in an inventory and it will become a blank one and you can reuse it. So to start with, you put this down on a block. And it's adjacent to some note blocks. And any note blocks it's adjacent to, it will then influence those. You then give it a redstone signal. There we go. Sorry, for some reason it takes a second there. And then it goes, and you can speed up how fast it goes. You do have to turn it off and back on again in order for it to actually take that into account. But, I mean, this is just 2 note blocks. Well, yes, I have a third one over here, but I mean, it's quite impressive that it's able to do this. And you just right-click on here. Now, to give an example, I have over here 2 that are just base note blocks with the same setup, and I changed it slightly by clicking on here a few times. And now this is just me just kind of like clicking on here several times. Just right-click. And then if I wanted to, I could copy this. But for now, let's just turn it off. And I can turn on both at the same time. Now, no, it's not like my #1 hit or anything like that. I'm just demonstrating this mod, so please don't give me flack for the terrible music. But the idea here, if I wanted, I could take this blank punch card that I made, and I could put it in here, and then it memorizes that setup. I can then take it over here and kind of reset this thing so that it looks much better, much cleaner, and they'll probably coincide a little better. There we go. Sounds at least a little bit more in tune. Not very much, but that's all my fault. But it's just amazing how much you can mess around with this. And like I said, yes, you can add more note blocks on more sides so that you can have more abilities on here. Speed up and slow it down. So for instance, if I turn this off and I crank this up considerably, it's going to sound actually even worse than it already does for my musical abilities here. But let's speed it up to 150 on both of these. You know, let's just make it a good 200 so that it's easy to notice the difference here. Yeah, and now it's quite manic. And of course, you can always slow this thing down as well. You could probably tune this thing to sing happy birthday to your friends if you really wanted to. But it's really, really interesting. The Jam Machine by AtomicWorkshop and Workshopcraft. This mod is called Jeweler's Construct by Darkhax and Jared. It takes the idea of baubles, as you might be familiar with, and combines it with like the Tinker's Construct type building mechanic. It's a little bit simplified in how it functions, and it has a more complex and somewhat flavorful way of actually adding on a lot of interesting things. So you'd want to start by crafting up a jeweler's forge and a part shaper. The jeweler's forge is very simple, as is the part shaper. Not very bad at all, in fact. And you can click on them and you get this little inventory here with all sorts of interesting stuff. Now, as you can see, the part shaper does take a fuel, and will use the fuel up as you start making different parts of your jewelry baubles. Now, with the jeweler's forge, this tells you what parts you would need in order to make one of these baubles. You can make 3 different kinds currently: a ring, a belt, and a necklace. They have not all fully been like textured and everything, but if you look on the side here, you can see that they all just pretty much show up as like a gray or silver variant. They can change, and you have lots of different materials to choose from. Not limited to just the vanilla style. As you can see, there's like an electrum in here, as well as like copper and so on. But there is a bunch of vanilla stuff as well. So let's start with, well, as you can see, a ring would require a band, a binding, and a gem. And this 4th slot is just nothing because it doesn't require a 4th item. A belt, on the other hand, would require 2 bands, a buckle, and a gem. Necklace requires a chain, gem, binding, and nothing. So let's start with a ring and make ourselves something here. As you can see here, I already have a ring made of bone, electrum, and emerald. In this case, we're going to make it out of a little bit more, well, I don't know, slightly nicer materials. So in order to make a ring, I will need to make a band. So if I go over here, I can choose a band, put in the appropriate material, and slowly over time, if you have enough in there, and you click shape, it will actually start making that. Sorry, it only needed 1 ingot. It shouldn't need any more than that. And then it'll make one of the appropriate item, a band in this case. It'll be iron. And each one may have different abilities. On this one, you get 1 modifier and a durability. The durability is just used over time as you use the bauble itself. So going back to this, you need a binding and a gem. So let's see, we need binding. There we go. Let's make the next part out of gold. We'll hit shape, and that'll make that up. And then I'll also make a gem with a diamond here that I have. And there are a few different kinds that you can make. I mean, there's actually a couple pages. Prismarine, emerald, and diamond for now. And then, of course, you've got all sorts of different kinds you can make for most of the other parts. But in this case, we're putting the diamond. We're going to make a gem out of that, shape it. And then we'll take these parts, start putting them over here. We've got an iron band. We've got a gold binding. And then I'm going to go over here, and within a second here, I'm going to have that gem. There we go. And it is now able to be put in here, and you get a ring. There you go, iron ring, gold, diamond. There are no modifiers. It says there are no modifiers because there aren't any being used on it right now. So this is just a ring with a durability. It is not actually going to give you any benefit. But if you look here, this gives a modifier of 1. This gives a modifier of 3, and that gives no modifiers, but it does add to the durability. So therefore I have a total of 4 modifiers. If I wanted to, I could feasibly add on up to 4 levels of something. Now in this case, I've got a ring and it does nothing, right? But if I take an iron sword, it's going to actually add on vigor, which is pretty darn cool. If I add in more iron swords, you can see it's vigor 2, and I can add on up to another 4 levels total, and it should work because that was maxing it out. If I put it in, I don't get anything back. It still keeps it in there. But if you look, it says +6 attack damage, which is pretty impressive, actually. I mean, this one here says no, none. This one has +6 attack damage and a 396 durability. So right now, you probably also notice I have several hearts. I have step assist. I can jump pretty good. I'm moving around really fast. It's because I've got a whole bunch of baubles on. I've got one here that's giving me +10 maximum health. And no, these things don't stack. So if you have 2 of them that give you +10 max health, it's just going to go with the highest one. But if you continue on, I've got one that gives +7.5 attack damage, one that 3.75 reach distance, lightweight food bonus, as well as saturation bonus. This one here gives me step up and 50% travel speed, so therefore I can run around really quick and punch and kill cows with my bare hands, just like that. I mean, if I don't do a jumping attack, you can see that's 7.5 damage, so it's pretty good. And that stacks with anything you want. So if I get like a wooden sword, for instance, which, you know, that only does 4 attack damage. If I add in that extra, cow dies. So yeah, it's pretty impressive with the options that you have with this and how much customizability it has. Plus, if you notice, over time the durability goes down. And with different materials, you'll gain either more modifiers and less durability, or vice versa, etc. And it's quite nice, actually. It is and can be very, very strong. As you can see, I was killing cows with my bare hands. It can be really a lot of fun and make a lot of use of the empty space that is bauble slots in a lot of mod packs, even if it's for a short time, or perhaps somebody has a restriction in their mod pack for, I don't know, maybe only access to like flint tools and such, therefore allowing you just a very limited bonus and maybe like a +half or something like that. But anyway, there's a lot of potential for this. It's really cool. And I've often liked the Tinkers and Craft It Yourself design, making you the warrior that you want to be, rather than the one that the mod pack has forced you into. So, there you go. Jeweler's Construct by Darkhax and Jared. This mod is called Practical Space Fireworks, brought to you by ExpensiveKoala, Gegi1000, and tterrag. And this one adds in a very unique mechanic, the ability to, well, build, launch, and use satellites in Minecraft. This being something very basic, I have a simple thruster, fuel tank, and a controller. The controller is what you're going to be using in order to tell this mod that you basically have a spaceship. Things that are connected to it that are from this mod also will be considered part of the spaceship, and therefore you have a lot of different options. As you can see here, there isn't a lot currently listed for the options on here, but there's actually a lot you can do. This being a remote control system, and this being a fuel loader, you'll need a fuel loader in order to actually, well, fuel your ship. This, as you notice, is a fuel tank. In order to load it, you just put some kerosene and liquid oxygen in each of these here, or you can throw them in a hopper. It'll actually fill through a hopper. You can put a hopper underneath and so on, so you can just fill a whole bunch, and it will fill any nearby fuel tanks, namely this one or these over here and so on. Now, if I were to continue with this, you can actually build onto it. This being your most basic setup, you have a thruster, fuel, and a controller. Now, if you actually use a remote control system, and I won't be showing recipes on this, I mean, there aren't necessarily any implemented, but unnamed craft 69. This one here, it will automatically just call it unnamed craft and then assign some random number to it. And it tells you a position of where it is, shows you a little bit about this, and some kind of grid thing that I will show you in a moment. Now, it shows you how heavy this machine is in order to thrust, and it does not have any kind of warnings at the bottom, so it shouldn't be an issue to actually launch this into the air. But what's the point of it? If I'm just launching it up into into space, there's nothing really much to do. That's where you can actually add in extra modules. As you can see here, it says fuel tank, satellite controller, and simple thruster. So you can add on to that things like lasers, which will actually, when asked to do so with a target selector, they can launch an orbital strike into the ground, which is very slow to fire. You can do things like a entity marker. You can do things like a terrain scanner. You can do things like an entity detector, as well as add in batteries for power while it's out there, and a solar panel so that it can actually gain power from the sun. Now, with that in mind, there is still plenty you can do, but as you notice, it is starting to get a little bit bulky and may have some trouble getting off the ground, perhaps. Actually, in this case, it seems to be just fine. If I were to add in more mass to this, let's just kind of bulk this out a little bit. And if you actually make a larger structure, it will start making the edges round, which you can't actually put thrusters on at this point. But because I broke that one block, the thruster fell off. And then I can click over here, unnamed craft, and it's still doing all right, actually. It's got enough fuel that it can launch itself into the air because actually this is a relatively small craft. So let's just make it really, really wonky. Just add a whole bunch of just stuff on the side there. See what it says? There we go, low thrust. So we have too much mass, not enough thrust for what we have in order to launch this into the sky. Now, that being said, this is actually a very well progressed mod. It actually is fully functional at this point. As you noticed, I'm sure, several different other satellites are currently in the air. And I have bits and pieces. This was my first one. It's primarily made of fuel tanks with a bunch of add-ons just tacked on the side there. It's relatively heavy, had a lot of thrusters and stuff. It just kind of looked like some kind of rocket ship with laser beams at the top. We've got Itty Bitty here, which was just this little tiny rocket that had a bunch of batteries, some solar panels, some detectors, basically a little tiny bit of everything just to see what I could get away with. The planet cracker here I made just to power a whole bunch of lasers, but I figured, you know what, that wasn't still enough, and it also had some extra bits on there too. And you'll notice that it actually didn't have, like this one here has a bunch of fuel tanks, the big bada boom that I have before me. The, what was it, Planet Cracker doesn't have any fuel tanks. Reason being is that you can actually add in also a payload separator, so that once it's in the orbit, it will detach the payload, and therefore it's not going to come crashing to the ground like that, though your spaceship could feasibly come crashing to the ground. And in this case, I'm actually going to finish adding on a few more thrusters for the big one here. Just so that we can even it out, because I wanted it to look pretty good. There we go. So once this goes up into orbit, this top part will be up there. The bottom part will not. And I can actually launch this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Unnamed Craft 1, and we're going to do this one first. And in order to launch these, you need to have access to the control panel. And in this case, I don't have it on those sides, but if you look at the battery here, I do have it behind it. So if I right-click, it actually will drop down. So if this is too high above, you risk blowing up your ship. So make sure that if you have something underneath so it can rest on it and it doesn't fall too far, else it'll blow up and might even kill you in the process. But there we go. It is now, if you see here, it says entity PSF spacecraft.name on there, which means it is now an entity and can be launched into the sky. There we go. We now have a launch button. Let's hit it. there it goes, up and away, and you can actually watch the launch on here further, and it will show you the kerosene and oxygen dropping as it progresses into the orbit. Now you will not actually see this bottom part detach or anything because that is currently all part of it. So it's just going to stay there. And it does have other abilities. You notice I put a whole bunch of like different radars and sensors on there. This llama, for instance, is now glowing, which is part of one of the items on there. Also, I have a map of the current terrain. And you can see pretty well what's going on. You can see even Big Bada Boom is over here, represented as a bunch of white cubes. So that's actually what we're going to do next. And we're going to launch Big Bada Boom. No issues there, so let's just go click on this one, which the satellite controller is here. If I break it, you can see I have a payload separator in this case. So let's put that back in place, drop it on top, and I will just right-click. The entire thing becomes an entity, and it actually is an entity out through a certain distance, so you don't want it to be too close, or you don't want these to be too close, or else you won't be able to actually right-click on this. If you want to undo it, you just right-click again, and it should turn it back into what it was, so that you can actually do that. Now, it actually did rename it, my bad, but because I kept on breaking and adjusting it, but we're just going to launch it as is. I couldn't resist. I changed the name. All right, so let's hit launch. And there we go. Massive launch into the sky. And we can see it is up there, no problem. Now, currently, that's going to stay there until I back out, go back in, click on it. Now it's gone. So, I mean, hey, this is done in a couple days for ModJam. This is really impressive. So there you go. It is now up there, has massive amounts of laser beams. And we have, of course, the map. Now, I'm not going to have that thing fire down the laser beams here just yet. I'm going to show you something a little bit more likely. Let's hit this here. Target selector. I now have, I can't remember which one I have over here. So let's actually go a little further away. I have a spaceship in this area. This was my original one, Bits and Pieces. So I'm just going to right-click with my remote. Uh-oh, that was firing my laser. Uh-oh. Maybe that's a bit bigger than I expected. Okay, so that one's pretty good. That one wasn't like the big one. And then I've got others over here. This one was the 3x3 of lasers, which, if you notice, goes all the way down to bedrock. And I figured, you know what? Let's go over here, and we're going to try targeting in this area. Let's make it right here. There we go. Big Bada Boom, firing. So now we get to see massive explosions coming in. Boom! All the way down to bedrock. Not a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of fun that can be had with this mod in its current state, let alone in any further development. So I hope you guys enjoyed Practical Space Fireworks by ExpensiveKoala, Gegi1000, and tterrag. This mod is called Runecarved by the MinerArcana group, consisting of Divine Aspect, Skysum, and Warlord Jones. And it is intended to be an early game enchanting mechanic, so you don't even need like all these books and everything like that. If I put this axe in here, you can see that there's Efficiency 2, Unbreaking 1, Efficiency 2, 4, 5, and 11, instead of like some really high levels, even though I have 24. If I go over here and I do the same, see 4, 5, and 11. It's the exact same things. So this enchanting table, or elementary enchanter, is intended for early game enchanting. One that is going to be a cheaper recipe as well as earlier access, but it will not actually allow you to get really high levels with this stuff. So I could officially get, there we go, Unbreaking 1 on my axe. Ooh. But it also may allow you to get some other special abilities, and that is these runes here. Now, in order to get these other special spells and effects, you'll need to make a scroll, which is really cheap. You can then put your scroll in here and enchant it and get things like a rune of fire or lightning, etc. Let's grab a rune of fire, and let's use this and toast a pigoo. There we go, I have a pig, put him down, and use my Sawilo scroll, and there we go. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. With power comes price, apparently. So you have to be careful. I have, let's see, an ice one here as well. Let's try an ice scroll with another pig. Put him down. And we can, there we go. Oops, that was a fire. There we go. We'll shoot him with ice. And every time that I shoot him with ice, I take damage as well. Uh-oh. So you have these limited use special spells and abilities that you can use, but you can also, I don't know, enhance them a bit further. Yeah, you could feasibly have like fire resistance or perhaps just a lot of health or health regen in order to offset the ice, or even use those in other ways. But that was just an example of some of them. I mean, currently there's Sight, Ice, Lightning, Fire, and Undeath. Now, if I were to take something like, let's say, this Rune of Undeath here, place it here with a stone pressure plate, I can then create an ear runestone, which these runestones here represent a new mechanic, a way to set traps. Therefore, I put that there, and you can actually see the little bounding box just appeared. So there we go, there's like a little pressure plate. It's not entirely invisible, because if you look directly at it, you can see the bounding box, but I'm sure in most situations it would be pretty invisible. Now, if I drop a pig on top of it, it will trigger a trap of undeath, which is no good. Get out of here, guys. I don't want any of this. That's right, those were raised corpses, special for this mod as well. And it adds several interesting techniques, but it's primarily focused at the moment around you being able to set traps so that those that might trigger them can, well, die, or perhaps just, you know, be deterred at the very least. So there you go, Runecarved by the MinerArcana group. This mod is the Shotguns and Glitter mod by user 11061564 and Tristaric, as well as yrsegal. Now, this one here adds in a whole bunch of like really special, shiny looking weapons, basically guns, as well as some grenades. And it also adds in all sorts of ammo types and stuff like that. I'm not going to go over entirely everything in this because there's quite a bit. But the idea here is that you can use things like grenades to blow your opponents away, repulsion grenades. You can use compressed daylight grenades to completely blind yourself and others if you're looking in that direction. If you're looking away, so you got flashbang 3, if you're looking away, you don't get any effect whatsoever. Now, if you are to continue on with this, I have other things. Namely, I have a spark pistol, which takes magazine. We've got a shotgun, which will take shotgun shells, a sniper rifle, which will take cartridges, and a minigun, which will take a drum. Now, if you take the specified weapon, plus their corresponding, basically, ammunition in your offhand, you right-click, you will then load the appropriate one, and you can fire. Now, in this case, it's just a simple one shot. You get like several shots in a clip. There we go. And it does not fire anymore. In the case of the shotgun, it's a little bit different. You reload one at a time, and then you can shoot. And you get a really big kickback. Reload and fire. And of course, it's very good at short range. The sniper rifle, it is also a single load item. Load that up, and you can shoot very straight for a very long time at a high damage. And it's good at medium to long range. It does have a bit of a cooldown on it though, and a major kickback. Speaking of kickback, we're going to now use the overvolted minigun, which is, as you might expect, very, very well spammy with bullets, as well as a constant kickback. As you can see here, I'm shooting quite a bit. I'm pulling down right now almost constantly. There we go. Very difficult to not actually shoot a weird direction with that one. Good for short to medium range, of course. And each one will have their own different abilities. Now I'm going to, in this case, oh, I forgot. I did not actually use the blizzard grenade. Here, let's toss one of these out too. There we go. Pow. Make yourself a grenade of blizzards. It's fun. And there's actually a really good manual that can take you through the different abilities and items that you can do in here with the search bar and everything. It was really, really well organized, even with a search option in it. But I'm going to use the pistol just to demonstrate some of the different effects. Now, you saw the gunpowder version of just about all these just now. There, of course, is the firework charge, which is just going to be really, really shiny. Bullets are being able to be shot with this one. Pretty cool. The repulsor charge, which will end up repulsing enemies in a way, and yourself. So if I am close by, I could easily kind of knock myself out of the way. There we go. Got them out of there. The graviton charge, which of course will do kind of the exact opposite. It will pull entities towards it. As you can see, the pigs and myself are getting pulled in this direction here. We can actually get pulled upstairs, woo, and launch ourselves a little bit if we're a little bit too close to where it ends up hitting. And of course there's the hookshot charge, which will kind of pull you in a direction a bit. You got to be careful of your, well, like your... if you're going to be pulled towards something that you don't want to be pulled towards, that might be bad. But it definitely pulls you towards a location that you have shot. There's the piercing charge, which I can only presume will pierce armor of your opponents. I don't exactly have a very good demonstration ability for this one here. I mean, I've got some horses over here, but they don't really have armor. Got your Psyker charges, which are quite interesting as well. I can't say that I studied up on every single one of these bullets, but you can see that they do have some really cool effects. The idea behind this is that it's really just a really pretty way of adding guns to a modded environment. And there's so many different options. Biotic charge, tranquilizer charge, which will pretty much just freeze any enemy in place for quite a long time. A freezing charge, which will freeze an area effect. Tainted charge, flashbang, which you already saw the blinding grenade, impact charge. Let's go to some of these the end ones here that are a little bit more interesting, and I'll just use up the last of that shot there. There we go. This one has impact charges in it, so if I shoot this, pow, it actually knocks some of these areas away. I can shoot the ground, and it launches a whole bunch of stuff up. Taking out this pig actually becomes a little bit more challenging. And then I've got things like this here with baleful charge, which if I can line it up right, let's see if I aim over here, pow, yes, I just set myself on fire, but it also sets a line on fire in front of it, which you can see can be fun, but it can also be very dangerous, especially if you hit yourself with it. And then we have, of course, the Dragonfire charge, which is a little bit different. It will kind of explode in an area where it hits and set a bunch of fire in that spot where it actually landed. Which, yeah, this is great for destroying entire forests at a time, as you might imagine. Now, there are tons of more options, and you can pretty much apply these to almost any of the different types of guns, including a special little secret here, compressed disco party grenade, which can have all sorts of different effects depending upon how things go. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Shotguns and Glitter mod. This mod is called SubMineOfThieves by MKTim, D1II1, ewanarends, and Richard JWZ. This adds kind of an adventure to an existing or new world of Minecraft. Kind of drops little breadcrumbs for you to follow, in a manner of speaking. You may find these things here, like little records, voice files, that may help show you the way, as well as some strange structures and others nearby. That may also, kind of lead to curious things underwater or out in the world.
Begin message. 2010-2013.
If you have found this, you must have been at my house. I've lived there for 44 years. Many great inventions have...
And so on. You'll find these little records laying about. It all starts at a gentleman's house, and you have to find that and follow the clues to eventually, or potentially, lead you to some crazy realization at the end. This is kind of an adventure mod. It's meant to send you on your own personal or, well, even a group journey. You may even find some instruments along the way, and have a little bit of fun as you go along. So there you go, SubMineOfThieves by MKTim, D1II1, ewanarends, and Richard JWZ. This mod is called Mumbo Tweakoni by StrikerRocker and KaptainWutax. Now, they had the best intentions on this one, though I have not personally been able to get everything to work as intended. But some of them have, and that is, for one, well, actually, I should say that the mod itself is based upon the 25 tweaks that I would like to have done in Minecraft on Mumbo Jumbo, the YouTuber. And basically, redstone on sea lanterns is one of them. So there you go. That one is pretty basic, pretty easy. You can see it is functioning. I have it currently in a circuit so that it's doing that. Another one is magma blocks. If you stand on them without shifting, you burn. And normally, if you press sneak and you walk on them, you don't. Now you do. So that was a slight change that was done there. Now, other things that were intended to happen that I cannot get to work is going to be this one, where if you press shift plus a key binding, you can then place a block below where you're at. Instead of having to go around on the sides, you can't actually place anything underneath the block, but it would therefore allow you to place underneath instead of needing a side face in order to do so. And then another one of the ones that is actually bugged is being able to put a lead on a villager. Sadly, that one's not functioning currently. And the last one is to put a music disc in a hopper and it be fed into a jukebox. Now, I've tried this with and without levers. I've tried all sorts of stuff in here. And when it's done, drop out into the hopper. But it has not actually done so. Perhaps I've been doing something wrong, but that was the intended effect on this one. It was just a few basic like vanilla tweaks to kind of change things. They had future plans for up to 25 different things there. And these were some of the ones they tackled and some of the ones that they did get accomplished. So that pretty much wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on all of the mods that are out there. It's a massive group out there, and I'm not going to be doing the map mods. I'm just going to be finishing this off with the team mods that are out there. So don't be afraid to check these out. There's going to be information in the links below. Vote for your favorites, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, spread the mischief to others. I think that they'll enjoy this content too. Until next time, folks, I'll see ya.